Hello, everyone. We're so glad you could join us for today's session of ACB Connects. I'm Susan Sands, President of ACB, and it's my pleasure to welcome you today to the third session in our virtual concert series. In today's session, How to Produce Successful Virtual Performances, Tips from the U.S. Army Field Band, the focus will be on topics that are relevant for ACB bands, including simple versus professional equipment, leveraging social media, maximizing viewership and engagement, copyright considerations, marketing, partnerships, and much more. ACB Connects is sponsored by the Association of Concert Bands, an international nonprofit organization whose mission is to foster excellence in concert band music through performance, education, and advocacy. Our membership includes concert community bands, band directors, individual members, student members, and corporate members. Everyone who cares about concert bands is welcome. Today's session is presented as a service to our members and as an outreach to the music community. Before I introduce our guests, I have just a few words of instruction. For optimal audio, everyone except the presenters has been muted. Today's session of ACB Connects is being recorded. This session, along with the other previously recorded sessions, can be accessed from the ACB Connects page on the ACB website. And finally, today's session will allow for interactive questions. If you have any comments or questions for our presenters, please share these in the chat addressed to everyone, and as many as possible will receive a response. At this time, it's my pleasure to welcome Colonel Jim Keene, the commander of the United States Army Field Band, along with several subject matter experts from the band. These experts include Master Sergeant Jared Morgan, an expert in video production and execution, Sergeant First Class Pamela Daniels, a specialist on the role of the producer, Master Sergeant Matthew Gunderson, whose specialty is copyright, Master Sergeant Brian Sacawa, an expert in strategic communications, and Sergeant First Class Selena Maytum, along with Sergeant First Class Sarah Schram-Borg, will be sharing their expertise in the field of marketing and partnerships. Our moderators today will be ACB Board of Director member, retired Colonel Tom Rotondi and Colonel Jim Keene. Now it's time to hear from Colonel Keene and the subject matter experts from the U.S. Army Field Band. So I turn the program over to our ACB moderator, Tom Rotondi.
Well, thank you so much, Susan. And I just have to let everybody know that I'm extremely delighted to have with us today Colonel Jim Keene. He's a great friend and colleague of mine and a proud member of ACB, by the way, and along with his wonderful team of experts from the United States Army Field Band, which is located on Fort Meade, Maryland. As Susan stated, Jim is the commander and conductor of the U.S. Army Field Band, and before COVID, there's no doubt that many of us have heard this exceptional musical group at a live concert while they were traveling all over the United States and playing for grassroots America. So let's welcome Colonel Keene and have him join me for a short conversation before we hear from his expert staff. Hi, Jim. How you doing today?
I'm great, Tom. Thank you so much for inviting us, and it's our pleasure to be here to share what we've learned over the past year with the Association of Concert Bands. Truly appreciate your team and what the Association of Concert Bands continues to do for those people who make music. We're ready to go. So whatever questions you have, let's talk.
Well, I'd like to, let's first start, let's get a little bit of background. So let's talk about pre-COVID. So all of a sudden COVID hit and you stopped traveling. And then all of a sudden, it didn't take you very long to reimagine how you guys were going to do business. And during that process, you've produced a variety of virtual concerts, online performances, and instructional videos. And the last number you gave me was over 350 of those productions. And one of those, of course, was that spectacular video of the Army Field Band performing the Star Spangled Banner at Fort Henry. And that's just all amazing stuff. So what was your thought process? Can you kind of let us know what the thought process was the minute COVID hit and you knew you were going to have to change the way you did business?
Sure. Obviously, all of us have to figure out what the way forward is in music, no matter COVID or not. People, I think, who are musicians are always trying to figure out, okay, what's next? The performance ends, and you're thinking about the next thing. So we were in the middle of Indiana in March the 11th of 2020. And the governor of Indiana told us that evening we would not be able to perform at a beautiful concert hall called the Palladium. And we were, we knew that the virus was becoming a threat. So we quickly started getting on the phone. And so we talked to a lot of the members who are here today with me. And we said, hey, what are we going to do? And we came up with all kinds of ideas, everything from, hey, let's do a week straight, 24/7 of performances. Let's go online and do it on social media. And what we ended up with, though, after a few conversations, was a daily program that we have sustained over the last year, from March of 2020 through today. We have now produced 371 virtual performances online. Early on, a lot of media was interested, and we were covered by just about every major media. And so we had to learn quickly, I'll put it that way. But we've been delighted to kind of keep the mission that we have, and that is to connect Americans to their Army. And this was a great learning experience. It was crazy at times, but it is continuing to teach us something that's very practical.
And then, Jim, you told me that you guys kind of did a little bit of this even before COVID, correct? You were telling me about, we started with an iPhone out in the audience, and then I remember you doing those 360 camera streaming concerts, because I was able to watch you do some concerts while you're doing those 360 cameras. So you were doing some of this even before COVID, is that correct?
Yes, we started, several years ago. As far as taping and video, capturing on video our performances, about 5 years ago, we started putting different cameras out, and it started with just the early versions of the iPhones. And we would set it on a tripod out in the audience and capture sort of a still shot. Later, we added some team members from Combat Camera who helped us video from, kind of professional cameras from the wings and from the audience. But yeah, we started it very humbly, just with an iPhone. And when we started getting kind of fancy, sometimes we would take the iPhone and put it into the ensemble. And other times we use some maybe more sophisticated sort of camera views. But yeah, it started just like everybody. Hey, let's take a recording of this and figure out how to do it in the best way.
And I kind of wanted our members to know that, because, we members of ACB, obviously, many of us don't have a lot of money for professional equipment, but knowing that even the Army Field Band started with the iPhone, I think that's important for all of us to know that, because, we can use one of these and be able to do the same things you guys are doing. So, and then of course, with your tips and your tricks and everything that you're going to tell us about today. So Jim, I'd like to move on. I think you have with all these numerous productions that you've done, you've kind of gotten some national notoriety. And I think you have a video that you want to share with us before we start with your presenters. Is that correct?
Yes, the picture's worth 1,000 words. And so let's show you this, what we call kind of a sizzle reel that gives you a little bit of our story, so you have an idea of our journey. And yeah, let's play the video.
Okay, let's go.
The coronavirus could not silence the Army Field Band.
Tonight, the U.S. Army Field Band had a field day online.
The Army Field Band has been performing a song on Facebook every day, Monday through Friday, and boy, do we need it.
Your virtual sing-along with the children's choir got some national attention.
Oh, yeah, the U.S. Army Field Band. That was just beautiful.
Wow, that's just fantastic, Jim. I see a lot of familiar face, not only your people, familiar faces, but a lot of great national people on there from the different TV stations, and also some old Army friends of mine too. That's fantastic. Jim, so along with that, such a fantastic way to help start us into this session here. Would you go ahead and introduce our first presenter?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously, we're very proud, but like to get right to kind of the things that the members want to hear and talk about. Again, I encourage you to figure out what kind of questions you want to ask. But there's nothing like telling a story. So we're going to be talking about what is this thing called performing online, and it's very similar to any other live performance. But it is knowing what platform, it's knowing what story you want to tell. It's the sort of, ensuring that you really know something about who owns the music and do you have the rights to put it up. We're going to be kind of going through a lot of things to think about. But I'd like to start with Master Sergeant Jared Morgan. He's our head videographer. He is an amazing talent. He's a visionary. He's an absolute expert in telling stories. And he's also built an amazing studio upstairs in our facility at Fort Meade just over the past year. I don't know if he's had many days off, but we've been really, really thankful to have this Emmy award winning producer on our staff. So I'll hand it over. So Master Sergeant Jared Morgan, it's your time.
Thank you, Colonel Keene. Good afternoon, everybody. Appreciate the opportunity to speak here to everybody. I know that there's probably a lot of questions about what we do, and I think each one of us is going to hit something specifically, but my expertise at the Field Band is the video production aspect of it all. That's the live streaming, the producing, the editing, physically putting out product, everything from, like I said, the live streams to even that video that we just saw, is all stuff that I manage in my shop. And so one thing I want to drive home, though, is that we, like Colonel Keene said, this is not something that we just came up with when the pandemic hit. We've been doing video even before we started doing the live streaming, since like 2010 to once I got at the unit. So we've had, a history of accumulating equipment and experiences and being able to learn from that to get to where we are today. But I know, what does that have to do with me? What does that have to do with my band? And probably the burning question, can I do it with an iPhone? Like, how is this tool in my pocket going to allow me to put video out on the internet? And it absolutely will allow you to do that. Could I go on for hours about all the cameras and gear and equipment that you could get? Sure. And we can probably hit some of that stuff in the Q&A. But the bottom line is that this tool in your pocket is a great start. I will say, though, that, video is a 50-50 experience. It's 50% what you see and 50% what you hear. And, for what we do, and what I mean at the concert band community or musicians, sure, I see you on camera, but I'm probably more interested in what you're playing, what you're presenting. I know that there's certain people who will only, they'll load up a video, but they're not actually watching what's happening. They're just listening to it. So I do urge you, though, if you're going to use an iPhone, to consider what your audio setup is going to be. And I'll talk about the ways to execute that in a second, but just to demonstrate, I have a very inexpensive USB microphone right in front of me. I did a test before. I'm pretty confident it sounds okay. And just to drive home the point, I'm going to back up here about 6 feet, and now we can hear what the difference is. And so imagine this is your iPhone, maybe 10 feet away, and how much different it sounds to when you're right up on top of it. So, we could go down the rabbit hole about the best quality microphones and the best placement of the microphones, but really just think about, using what you have and placing it as close to the source as possible. If you were going to invest in one piece of equipment, though, video wise, I would say get a good tripod. Figure out a way to mount your camera to a tripod. Don't try to handheld something. And if you can light the subject, and I'm not going to go into that right now, but even right now, there's a light right here. You can see I put my hand in front of it, and just a little bit of light can make a really big difference. We talked about the audio, and one thing I want to talk about real quick. There's two ways to go about capturing video. You could try to invest a bunch of money and time into gear yourself and try to figure out how it all works, or you could leverage the people around you. You could hire a professional. You just got to think about what it is you're trying to do and what kind of resources you have. If you were going to spend, I'll just make up a number, $1,000, or that's what you have for a year, you could hire a very good college student, up and coming video person who could probably help you get the vision that you're looking for. And you could pump out a bunch of videos on that budget, or you can go out and spend that money on a camera that you'll, struggle with to learn how to use. So you just got to think about what your budget is, how many videos you're trying to produce. And also, is this a live thing? Is it pre-recorded? Who is this for? Is it an internal audience? Is it something on Facebook or YouTube? And I know that some of our analytics folks are going to talk specifically about where, when you place videos and how people respond to them. And those are things that you'll learn. And I guess in closing, what I'll say, and hopefully we'll in the Q&A have more time to talk about this stuff, but I will encourage you to just go out there and do it. I see a lot of people have paralysis by analysis. They'll stab and well, I need this camera. Well, I need this microphone. Well, I can't do it unless I have this perfect setting. And the reality is just leverage the people that you have around you, use the gear you have, and just get out there and start doing it and learn from your mistakes. And don't be afraid to build a team of people. Don't try to go at it alone. Use the people around you to help offset the workload. And to talk more about that, I'm actually going to hand this over to one of our producers in the band, Sergeant Pam Daniels, who I lean on quite often when producing video, because it's a lot for me to think about the technical aspect of it. And it's another thing to think about what's actually happening, what's next, where are we going? So Sergeant Daniels, why don't you talk about producing?
Thank you, Sergeant Morgan. As Jared said, I am Sergeant First Class Pam Daniels. I am actually a flutist with the concert band, but I, for the last few years, have been producing some shows for our concert band on the road. And then once we came home just over a year ago, I started producing for the live stream series as well. So the producer's role, the very first thing that comes to mind with that is that you're the initial creative vision behind a show. So you're deciding on what all the different aspects of the show are going to look like, and then kind of holding everything together, reaching out to the people that you need, and helping to organize how everything happens. Something that we've learned a lot over the past year, just as Jared said, is that no really great show can come together with just one person, and it takes a huge team of people to work together, and an understanding that you don't have all of the ideas, this person doesn't have all the ideas. It's something that a lot of people can be involved in, and something that I really appreciate is just how many people we have on our team, and that I can really trust to reach out to other people for ideas for anything. And then my job comes down to, okay, well, now I have to go through these different ideas, listen to what other people have to say, interpret what they've said sometimes, and bring it all into one concise message. So I'll write a script, I program the music, and then plan the story behind the show. So really, what is your message going to be? And you have to decide how you're going to get that message out, how you're going to portray it. So a lot of different things to think about with this that I'll just go through really quickly, is who is your intended audience? And how do you plan to market and target that specific audience before the show actually comes out, and then hold on to their attention throughout the show as well? So then they will interact with you. So they will then also share the show with other people, that kind of thing. I know this is something that Sergeants Maytum and Sergeant Schram-Borg are going to speak about with marketing and working with social media and all of that. So then you're also, like I said, going to have to decide on what your message is, and how are you really going to sell that message and make that clear throughout the entire program. Something that I think about a lot is who are the best people performing wise to utilize to be able to sell your message. We are lucky to have a large unit with a jazz band, concert band, chorus, a pop, rock, bluegrass group. So we have to really think about who is the best person to help us in doing that, sending that message out. As Sergeant Morgan was talking about, what are the creative and technical resources at your disposal? Something I have learned a whole lot in the past year, especially doing all of this just on the fly, about all of the technology that goes into what we're doing, and how I can use those things to help the program throughout. So really, how to use those resources is extremely important to know, and not something that you can sit down and learn in a day. It's something that you definitely learn on the fly as you're going, because it is just an unlimited amount of information. How much time do you have to create the actual product you're putting out? That's something that we spend a lot of time working on. Sometimes you have 4 months to put a show together and get it out the door. Sometimes you have 4 days or 2 days. So you have to really use that time wisely, and prioritize what kind of things are going to go into your show based on what kind of time you have to create it. What else? So like I mentioned, keeping things organized is a huge part of what I do as a producer. Keeping all the members of the team, clued into what's going on at all times, so each person only has to worry about what they're doing. The video team can worry about the video aspects, the technology there, The performers just have to worry about performing and doing their job there and putting together a strong musical performance. So keeping everyone organized throughout all of that is an extremely important part of being a producer. So the other thing that I really think about as a producer as being extremely important is the day of filming and recording and throughout rehearsals and the preparation process. I kind of consider myself the cheerleader for the musicians. So everyone you work with is different. We all know that as performers, recording is extremely stressful and not an easy thing to do, and add a camera in your face and it doesn't make it any easier, that's for sure. So really working closely with these musicians through the whole process, being the person that they trust, that is listening and watching, that can give them feedback. Really just so, I mean, we don't have time to go back and listen to each take and every musician overanalyze their own performance, because we're all always our worst critics when doing that anyway. So to be the person that is there for the performers to trust and say, you know, that really wasn't it, let's do it again. And a part of that for me is also really knowing each individual performer really well. We all work in different ways. So what one performer needs on the day of a show isn't what another performer needs. So really knowing the kind of feedback and how to present that feedback to different people, as well as the difference between the feedback you give in rehearsals and in preparation versus the feedback you give on the day of filming is really, really important to keep in mind, because we all know once you get that stress level and things are hitting, you don't want to pile onto that, and it can very quickly. So having someone that's there, that's being your support and giving you confidence is really important. So I think as a producer, that's an extremely important role to have with that. And then, so one of the most important things that we think about when putting a show together, as I said, is the repertoire we're going to use, what kind of music we want to help support our message. So as soon as I come up with that repertoire, the first person that I'm in touch with is Master Sergeant Matt Gunderson, who is our copyright guru and really knows a lot more than I do about any of that, and it's a lot to know, that's for sure. So I'm in touch with Sergeant Gunderson throughout the entire process to know what kinds of things I can do without rights to specific music, with rights, if it's sync rights to go with a video, if it's rights to arrange a tune, anything like that. He is the expert. So I'm going to hand it over to Sergeant Matt Gunderson now to talk about copyright.
Awesome. Thanks, Sergeant Daniels. Yeah, so I'm the head librarian at the United States Army Field Band, and that makes me the de facto expert in copyright for all of Army bands. So I work with all the Army bands across the world, helping them with anything that has to do with copyright. I work with other service bands. I work with the Marines, the Air Force, the Navy, and I work with civilian organizations too. Sometimes they get in touch with me and they ask me questions too, and that's just something I love to do, is be able to share my knowledge and try to ease their burden a little bit. First things first, I will say this, that I am not a lawyer, so I'm not going to give you any lawyerly advice, but I will give you my expert opinion and some of the years of experience that I've had, dealing with these sorts of things. So that's why I'm here today. If you were going to put anything online for public consumption, most of the time you're going to have to get some sort of synchronization license, a sync license, as we like to shorten it because it's too long of a word. Even if it's live, that's kind of the rub there. If your organization is required to pay performance royalties to perform live in person, then you're going to have to get some sort of license in order to perform live online. We as a military organization kind of have this cool out in the copyright law, where we don't pay performance royalties when we perform live in person. So we utilize that as an online live performance is a live performance. And so we kind of have that leniency there. If you don't have that exception, then you're going to have to try to get some sort of synchronization license from the publisher of the music. So that's the hard part. But the hard part is finding who to contact. Once you get in contact with them, hopefully that's the easy part. So if you need to get a synchronization license, you need to find out who published the music and who controls the rights. Now, you might be looking at a piece that was published in 1977, and that publisher may have changed over time. So that's where our performance rights organizations, our PROs, come into play. That's ASCAP, BMI, Global Rights, and CSAC. Those are the four big ones that we deal with in America. There are other ones, from the Canadians, the Australian have their own, some in Europe, some in Japan, but hopefully it's one of those big four ones. And if they don't have that, then it's that's when Google's your friend. I use Google a lot more than I like to admit, but it is rather important for me. So you're going to want to search in those one of those four PROs. You may have to search in all four of them, depending. And you want to search either by title or composer. Sometimes I search by both, because sometimes the title doesn't work because it's spelled differently, or they use some sort of weird diacritic, or an apostrophe is missing. It's dumb. So try to do every little thing that you can think of to find the piece of music. And then once you find that, you'll see who the publisher is. And you're going to want to contact that publisher and ask for a synchronization license. Now, hopefully, some of the music that you want to perform only has one composer, because if it has one composer, it hopefully only has one publisher. And if you have one publisher, it's a lot easier to negotiate. But if you have one of those wonderful pieces that has 7 composers and 7 publishers, you have to get a yes from every single publisher before they'll say, before you can use that piece. And so once you find out who controls it, you get in touch with them, then you start negotiating. Okay, this is the piece that we want to use. This is the platform we want to use it on: YouTube, Facebook, your personal organization's website, because they're all going to be different. Maybe they'll give you a blanket license for all 3. Maybe they'll say, okay, for this, it's $100. For this, it's $200. For this, it's no. It could happen. It's happened for us. So, and then they'll give you a time limit for it too. Maybe it's, okay, your performance is on May 17th. You can use it on that one day, and that's what you're paying for. Or you can have it for a year. You can host it on your site for a year, or maybe 5 years. And every now and again you say, leave it up, it's fine. But that's very rare nowadays, because people want their money. Because apparently, publishers are going broke too. So the big thing for us, for me, is if it's a no, or you don't hear back, you have radio silence. A radio silence is a no. Don't post something that you don't have the rights for, because that's when they really will go after you. And that's bad juju for everyone. I don't wish that on anybody. Luckily, we've been very good, and we've never run into that problem. But we've come close, and luckily I was able to work out some magic. And it always stinks to adjust your programming after you've gotten a no. So my advice is to always program music then from which you already have a yes. Because trying, like, your performance is May 17th, May 16th, you still haven't had a yes from that one major piece that you really want to do. And then if you still hear no or radio silence, you can't do that tune. And that ruins your whole program. So try to work out music that's programmable, and don't rely on hope and wishes. And then once you get the license from them, really read over it and read what you're signing up for, and follow their rules. Because if you follow their rules, they have nothing to come after you for. If they say leave it up for a year and you leave it up for 2, it might not be so good. So that's really the nitty gritty of what I do and what I advise our band to do. So any questions that you have about that later, I'm free to open. And like, if in the future you need to ask a question that you just can't quite find the answer to, I'm always available to answer questions. So that's what I have. And who am I turning it over to? I forgot already. Is it Brian?
That would be me. Yeah.
Awesome. Take it away, Brian.
Thanks, Sergeant Gunderson. Hey, everyone. I'm Master Sergeant Brian Sacawa. I play saxophone in the band, which is actually something I have to remind myself of a lot these days over the past year, since we haven't been playing. Over the years, I've done some announcing for the group, and I've worked in the public affairs office for quite a while. And that's what I'm going to be talking to you guys about today, getting your message out there. So I am going to wager that everyone on this call right now, that we have like a few things in common. We love music, we are passionate about it, and we understand music's singular power to connect with people and move them in a way like no other. And we've personally felt that power, which is why we love music so much. And it's why we have that strong desire to communicate with as many people as possible, to give people, let people have that same type of transformative experience that we know to be so powerful, because it's amazing. And we know that people just need to be exposed to the music that we love to understand it and really get it. That is the truth. So the other thing that's true, and this is something that I know that nobody here is going to want to hear, and it actually might get some of you really upset. Nobody cares about band music. Nobody cares about band music. You care about it. We definitely care about it. But the regular person out there in your community, this person doesn't care about band music. They don't care about the whole suites. They don't care about Percy Grainger. They don't care that you're doing a world premiere or a whole concert of world premieres. Nobody cares. So the questions you're probably wondering are, well, how do I get them to care? And how do you reach more people to spread your message of the power of music? And you have to think, is that even the message that you are trying to spread? So I just put that out there because I want you to kind of think critically a little bit about it, and to think a little bit differently, because you all have a platform to do something very special. So when we play the Eber Flute Concerto, again, nobody cares that we're playing the Eber Flute Concerto, except for maybe like those 2 flute students that we have in the audience. But before our soloist even walks out on stage, our audience has absolutely fallen in love with her, and they can't wait to hear what she plays. And they love hearing the Eber Flute Concerto. They might not know what it was, but they loved it. Another example. So before one of our vocalists comes out to sing on stage, the audience already feels like they know her, and many of them are in tears. How? Why? How do we do that? So it's because of the way that we use storytelling in what we do and how we present it. So before each of these soloists walks out on stage, the audience sees about a 60 to 90 second video telling their story. So I use the flute soloist. So our flute soloist, she, in her story, expresses a profound gratitude for her parents' support to bring her to this very moment. People connect with that. Our vocal soloist talks about coming from nothing, literally living someplace without any heat for a time in her life. And people are moved to tears. And the music they perform just heightens that sense of emotion for the audience and the connection that they've already formed with them before they even play or sing a note. So it's about the emotion and it's about the people. And what I'm trying to say is that your band library isn't your most precious resource, but it's the people in your band that are your most precious resource. They've all got a story, and those personal stories are what can connect you to your communities in a very meaningful way. And when we're talking about something as niche as concert band music, you really kind of need to figure out and find that hook to draw people in and make what you're doing relevant to them. So find those personal stories, find ways to connect that with what's important to your community, find ways to connect that with something that's going on in your state, with something that is going on nationally. Use those connections to hook the local paper, to hook the local television station, as a way to let them know that you're invested in the community and that your performance highlights that connection and heightens that connection through the power of music. And that's what we really want to do. So it's the music heightens the story, and the story drives the connection that people have with you. So that's sort of like my broad brushstroke communication overview, and an invitation for you to think kind of beyond the music itself, which is what we as musicians can sometimes get wrapped up in and not see beyond, which is the one thing that can prevent us from spreading our message to as many people as we want. So next, I want to invite Sergeant's First Class Sarah Schram-Borg and Selena Maytum to give you sort of a simple blueprint for actually making some of these connections, and to make sure that you're really maximizing the work that you're putting into your productions and getting the best return on your investment.
Great. Thank you so much, Master Sergeant Sacawa. Again, I'm Sergeant First Class Sarah Schram-Borg, and it's great to be with you all this afternoon. I'm going to speak a little bit first and then hand it off to Sergeant Maytum. So once you've done all this work, you've planned, you've prepared, you've recorded, you're creating this amazing product that you're going to release, but you got to have people see it, right? You want people to watch it and know that it's out there to find. So here's where you have to start thinking about the marketing and partnering aspects of virtual programming. And I'm going to share a couple of ideas with you that have worked for us over this year and before, but especially now in this virtual realm. So you want to always reach directly out to your traditional audience. You're emailing them just like you would about a normal concert, but this would be about your virtual concert or the products that you're going to be releasing, making really nice digital graphics, posters, high quality for your website, and posting on your social media pages, so that people start to just, like, their eye grabs these graphics. And secondly, your traditional, like, physical flyering, maybe you would go out to the local businesses, you would ask to post things on community bulletin boards in high schools, all over the place. Now that things are opening up, you can start to do that again, but since this is a virtual world, you're going to want to do that on the internet. So you can now, like, personally approach these same businesses, these community groups, your local leaders, ask them to help you get the word out, connect with them in this way. And maybe they'll reshare your posts. Maybe they'll want to cross post your live streams, which we could talk about a little later. Maybe even further than that, you could ask them if they want to be a part of this, collaborate with you, partner with you on this. You could offer them the opportunity to introduce a piece that, from the program that you're doing. Say, hey, we're playing these 4 pieces. Do you have any personal connection? Does anything jump out at you that you feel strongly you'd like to be a part? You'd like to introduce the piece. You'd like to tell a personal story, so that you're grabbing another person in your community, and then they are involved and they want to share this product as well. And then you're reaching all of the people that they traditionally reach, and they're reaching all the people that you traditionally reach. And there's this mutually beneficial partnership. And it just adds the value of your project. It adds value to it, and it helps bring your community together, which I think at this time, my most proud things that I feel like we've accomplished are really bringing people together that maybe wouldn't always be together or see the same things, reaching new people. So your community, your local community, is a great place to start to seek these partnerships out. It's also worth noting that you can always think big. You should reach for the stars as well. You never know. It doesn't hurt to ask. So say you're playing a piece by a composer that's living. Maybe they're just sitting in their living room and, composing and not really able to go anywhere. They're on Zoom teaching classes. Reach out to them. Hey, would you like to join our live stream? You could send a quick video. We could do an interview with you. You could just do something on your phone and Dropbox it to us. And then you have this incredible connection with somebody that you would have had to fly in, maybe get funding for that. Like, this is actually a silver lining. So reaching out to a composer, maybe a specific state or national park near you or that has ties to some of the piece you're playing. We've been able to develop lasting partnerships with certain organizations. One of them is the National Parks System, just because of a connection that we made. And then that has just led to just more collaborations together. It never hurts to ask. And, you know, we randomly reached out to country music artist Trace Adkins, his agent, and just, hey, is there any way you'd want to do a shout out? And his agent said, like, yes, definitely. Let's get him in there. So, I mean, it's just like you can't, of course, you're going to get a lot of no's, but you're going to get yeses too. And it's always worth asking. So hopefully these ideas will help you keep your audience that you've been missing this whole time and continue building that audience, maybe through partnerships and connections that you wouldn't have tried for before. And that this means, like, when things get to normal, hopefully there will be your same community, but also adding to that community in your audience when we're able to be together again. So now I'm going to hand it over to Sergeant Maytum for the social media aspect.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Sergeant First Class Selena Maytum. I'm a French horn player in the concert band with the Army Field Band, but I've also been a member of our social media team for the last 5 years. So I want to talk a little bit about just some takeaways that we've learned, especially this last year, with how we put things on social media, deciding what platforms to put things on, and then just a little bit about the when and where and using analytics on our social media platforms to help make some of these decisions. So the first big takeaway that we had last year, I know we've talked, kind of listening to everyone talk, we're talking about a virtual concert. It's kind of how we've been talking about this. We learned very early on in doing this series of performances throughout 2020 and 2021, that the idea of a virtual concert, like a full-length virtual concert where it's like you're sitting in the concert hall watching it happen, that actually doesn't work very well on social media platforms. Very rarely will you find someone that is willing to sit down and watch 45 minutes of a performance, 30 minutes of performance. Even 20 minutes is a big stretch for a lot of people. When you think about the way people use YouTube and Facebook, and even more so Instagram, Twitter, they scroll, right? They're scrolling by on a phone or a tablet. They'll watch 5 seconds of a video. And if they don't like those 5 seconds, they're going to scroll right by it and keep going. So one of the things that we've actually shifted to here at the Field Band is the idea of a series of performances. And this is something that I think for all of your organizations could actually work very well. You can still have one day where you're going to have people come in, be it the full band or be it, chamber groups, a brass quintet, a woodwind quintet, maybe a, trombone ensemble or whatever ensemble you have that's going to get together and record material, video record, audio record. You can still come in and do that all on one day or maybe on a weekend, and say, we're going to record these 7 pieces of music or these 10 pieces of music. Rather than releasing all of that as one full performance, this is a concert of our group, we're playing all this stuff. If you release it as a piece at a time, you now have 7 weeks worth of content or 10 weeks worth of content. And we've discovered that when you set up a series like that, not only does that allow the audience to really focus on that content for a short amount of time, your average piece is 5 to 7 minutes long, maybe. But you also get a lot of bang for your buck because you're setting them up with an expectation. Every week at Wednesday, every week, this group is going to put a new piece of music on YouTube, or they're going to put a piece of music on their website. So I'm going to check in every week on that day to see what new piece comes next. You've set up that expectation and your audience is excited about coming to see that new thing that you're releasing. And we've just discovered that works a lot better than doing one performance a month or one performance a quarter, like we normally would if we're performing live. Maybe you do a performance a month. It just doesn't work that well in the virtual realm. So I would really encourage you to kind of consider that. And those pieces can all be tied together with some kind of story or some kind of messaging, or each one can be kind of a standalone thing with a unique story or a unique message. And that opens up a lot of opportunities for you to be thinking like producer wise, kind of as Sergeant Daniel said, what's the story, what's the message, how you're going to break those components out and have a lot of content that you can then put out to your audience and new audiences that you're looking to bring in. The second thing to consider, and I know that Sergeant Gunderson touched on this a little bit with the rights conversation, is where you're posting, when you're posting. Part of that is with the sync rights, right? If you only get permission to post on YouTube and you have a YouTube channel, a Facebook page, and a website, well, you only got permission to post it on YouTube. So that's where it's going, okay? But if you do have maybe a YouTube channel and a Facebook page and a website, do you have different audiences, or is it the same people that are following you on all those pages? For the field band, we know a lot about our audiences on our social media pages, and I would encourage you to talk to whoever's running your social media for your organization. What is the audience on your Facebook page? Is it young? Is it old? Do they like really old band music, or do they love brand new world premiere stuff? Like what do they react to the most? What do they comment on the most? What gets them the most excited? Talk to your webmaster. How many people are viewing videos on your website? What kind of videos are they watching? Are they watching the whole thing or the first 5 seconds? You'll learn a lot by just digging into some of those analytic tools, and those are on all the social media platforms. You can kind of go in there and see, what are people looking at? What time of day are they looking at stuff? For the field band, we know we kind of have an upswing at 10 a.m. and then it kind of goes down at 8 p.m. So as long as we post between 10 a.m. and 8 p.m., we're good to go. If we release something at 8 o'clock in the morning, nobody's going to see it for 2 hours because nobody looks at our stuff until 10 a.m. And we know that. We've learned that lesson by just looking at those analytics reports. And then the last thing just to keep in mind, kind of as Sergeant Schram-Borg said, we have a lot of new flexibility in this virtual world of virtual performances. Whereas, again, a normal community band performance would be maybe once a month, and you have rehearsals and you get together and you're playing a concert. It's an hour and a half long. It'd be really difficult to showcase like a flute ensemble and a brass quintet and then a brass ensemble and then maybe a guest vocalist, because you'd be moving chairs and stands around and it becomes this whole circus. In the virtual world, we can take care of all that. We can edit all that out of the video. No one will ever see it. And you have a lot of freedom to program different sizes of ensembles, different kinds of music, all with unique stories and unique messages. And so I think, again, as you're considering where you're going to put this content, are you going to put it on a YouTube channel or on a website? What is that audience looking for? And also, what kind of new things can you do with the resources that you have, the musicians that are a part of your group? Would there be an interest in doing a percussion ensemble piece or something that you might not be able to get all that equipment together and, clear the stage of everybody else and showcase the percussion section and then put everybody about, it becomes a whole thing when you're doing it in person. But virtually, that might be a really fun opportunity for your percussion section. So it opens up a lot of opportunities, I think, is one thing that we've really appreciated about doing this virtual series. So that's the short version of some social media topics just to keep in mind. I am excited to answer questions and things like that. I know that everyone is. So I will turn it back over to our host. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you all very much. Sergeant Maytum, I'm going to ask you a question right off the bat here. So what kind of COVID protocols were you using when you invited your people back into your studio to record these things?
That is an interesting question. It changed a lot. There've been a lot of changes on that one. We have been using bell covers for brass instruments, and we've been doing social distancing at all times. In our studio room, which is the concert band rehearsal space, we've kind of turned into a studio. No more than 10 people in that room at any given time. So if there's a camera person in there, you now are limited to a 9-person performing ensemble, as long as we can space them out in the room to have that distance between everyone. We've worked really hard to try to only be in there recording for a half an hour at a time, and then we clear the room, let the air handlers, do their things. And a lot of that has been, of course, DOD mandated of what we're doing at Fort Meade and elsewhere. But a lot of that has also been based on some of the scientific studies that have been done about wind instruments and things like that. We have done some outdoor performances where we've had a lot more freedom. You mentioned the Fort McHenry performance. It was outside, so space everybody out 10 feet, and we're able to have the full element be outdoors there. So that was actually a blessing in disguise, I think. But yeah, I do think, again, that's another reason to maybe consider chamber ensembles, right? Less people in a room at a time, might be a safer option for right now. But yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Oh, it certainly does. And thank you so much for bringing up the length of the video because I think we've all learned during this last year and a half that, it's easier to put together a 3-4 minute piece than it is to put a longer piece like that. And, most people, like you said, are all going to watch 3 to 4 minutes anyway, and then they're going to move on if they're looking at it on their phone there. I do have a question here. I want to get into some nitty gritty things if I can. And this would be about, I'm talking about musical transitions. There we go. So if maybe Colonel Keene, you can help me direct me with this. So if you're recording something virtually, say not everybody's in the same place, but if you're recording something virtually and you're trying to get it across a transition, a retard, accelerando, fermata, what kind of techniques do you guys use to do things like that?
Yeah, so Tom, your question is a good one. So you're talking about, and by the way, the only place I have like 2 bars is in my pickup in my driveway. So this is beautiful. That's part of, it's actually indicative and illustrative of kind of what we have to do. We started our broadcast in our main rehearsal hall. We've got this fantastic space that you probably know at Fort Meade, but it's soundproof, right? And that also means that it's everything proof. There's no signal that goes out. So we would try to do live streams and we'd do these other things. We try to connect people doing a Zoom call from within, and we would have bad signal. So we had to upgrade the whole thing. In any case, I think your question is, so how do you work if you're doing things from in tracks? How do you do things so it sounds musical, right? And that's interesting. I think the first part is it's just like everything. The rehearsal is key, and so you can rehearse in real time over the waves, right? Hey, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna slow down, and we'll have. I think interestingly enough, most of the recordings we do, we don't necessarily need a metronome, right? We don't need a click. So a lot of times what we will do is, obviously if something's built from someone who has steady notes, that's the way you do it first, right? So you get that group in first, or that person, and you let them record first. It's pretty simple, pretty obvious, but you definitely don't want to record somebody first who has a bunch of rests. I don't know if that helps, but that's sort of, that's lessons learned, and it's not quite as simple as I just made it, but there's a lot of ways of going after it.
Yeah, most of the people that have tried this, and me included, or you pick a piece that has constant tempo, and then you get your whole group to go with that. You record either one person or you go with a click track, and you kind of do that. But we were just kind of wondering, if you're gonna try a piece with a retard or a fermata, or change into a different section, you have a different section that has a different tempo. What would you do? And I guess I would suggest give it a try. Go ahead and try. You're going to learn how to do it eventually. So or not. But there's no reason to not give it a try. And like you said, analyze whoever is the most important person at that point in time, and have that person record first, and then kind of go from there. There are a couple other questions here, Jim. I've got. What about your outdoor spacing during COVID? The acoustics, how did like that Star Spangled Banner at Fort Henry, McHenry? How were the acoustics? How did you get that? How did you keep that all together? Or did you record in the studio and then do it out there?
Yeah, so the funny part. So the thing that I have to say again is that 370 programs we've done in the past year. And so there are a myriad of ways we do it. Sometimes it's live. We play the whole thing, one take, there it is, we go to the next one. And I hope that it got somebody's attention when someone said, you record 7-10 tunes in one day. Well, that's like extraordinary, right? Like that's unheard of. It usually takes days to record something. So we've had that capability. For that particular case, and for the large ensemble, that was the only time our group got together as a large ensemble. we definitely played, but the music that you're hearing is already recorded. We recorded that early on. As a matter of fact, it's part of our soundtrack of the American Soldier that we did at Skywalker Sound in California. And that's, by the way, a fabulous recording. And we just wanted to get it out. And when we had a chance, we, of course, at that time we thought, well, we'll just go record it and we'll figure it out. The things we were worried about is like airplane noise. We weren't really thinking about COVID continuing for like, a month, right? Or 2 months or 3 months. And now, of course, here we're going on 6-9 months. So the answer basically is that particular recording was pre-recorded. We played along with the recording.
Okay, great. I kind of thought that will probably be it, but I just wanted to check. We did have a question about that. Now, we also want to know, we want to get back down to the 25-cent solution, okay? We want to get down to the nitty gritty. What type of software do you guys use, or tools do you use both for audio and video? And how do you put it together?
Yeah. Sergeant Morgan, what do you have to say about that?
Sure. Well, it depends on the execution of what we're doing. Software-wise, most of our editing is done with Adobe Creative Cloud. Specifically, Premiere is our go-to editing software. When we're live in the studio, we had a bunch of Blackmagic equipment before. We just switched over to TriCaster. Those are the specifics of the studio. A lot of the stuff you're seeing is actually switched live. And so there's actually very little editing that's done. We will cut out when you see the We Stand Ready shows, we'll cut out the in-between transition stuff. But in terms of the, take 1, camera 2, camera 3, like that's all actually switched to live. I did want to speak specifically about the audio to tape versus live. That there are two ways to go about it. What you saw with the Fort McHenry, like Colonel Keene said, was a recording. That's if you're most concerned about the best quality audio and the best performance, of course, then you should definitely go with recording the audio first. And then what you do is you play it back. You set up some sound reinforcement on site, and you can put a click in the track to kind of keep tempo, and you essentially just have the musicians play along, Milli Vanilli style. They're just at that point, they're just actors. They do have to play because they have to match what's happening. But yes, they can. And, you could make the argument, oh, well, they're not really playing. Well, they are. If they were the ones on the recording that played it, they just, like Colonel Keene said, it's very hard to control your environment, especially when you're out, at a place like Fort McHenry. There's planes flying over, there's announcements, there's cars driving by, there's all kinds of stuff happening. And of course, the other way to do it is to record on site. And then, that has its drawbacks because now your camera operators can't make any sound. If there's a car horn outside, you got to start again. There's so many different variables. But of course, the flip side to that is that, you're actually playing it live. So you just have to consider what it is you're trying to convey to your audience. If you're actually on stage and you're playing it from front to back like a concert, sure, you would just record that live. There's no reason to play a whole concert to tape. But if you're doing one individual piece, and I'll speak specifically about that. I know, sir, you had made you had the question about like, well, how do you deal with different tempo changes? So, something you could try is instead of sending a click track, record yourself conducting, and you could actually do all of the tempo changes and retards and, holds and fermatas, all that you want. And so that when the person who's recording their audio, they have a little QuickTime window or something, and they're watching you conduct, maybe they hear the audio underneath it, they've got their headphones on. And so there's ways to, cheat that in a way where like you're giving the performer information. I want to say metadata, but you're giving them visual cues. There's a click perhaps for them to all stay in track. Maybe they hear the drummer or something like that. And then in post, you line up all those tracks together, and then you remove the ones that you don't want to hear. And I think I'd mentioned, I saw a comment in the chat about, what if you don't have the strongest players? I mean, that's at your discretion. If you've got the ability to change things in post, put your best foot forward, double up on your best players. It's really up to you. Like if you've got the time to spend in post and you're not concerned with turning the product out for an immediate release, then by all means, do everything you can do to make that product as polished as possible and to give the message that you want. That's what we do. When we have the time, we'll put the time in. Sometimes we don't have the time. We got to get the product out right away, and it just is what it is. But like I said, when you have those opportunities, take them.
And I know you had talked earlier about how to record different instruments or devices, microphones, iPhone, whatever you have there. I do know that some of that information is on your virtual music classrooms that you guys have. There's one that speaks specifically about where to put the microphone and things like that. Could you kind of touch on that just quickly? You muted yourself.
Yes, I did. Sorry. I am the wrong person to ask about that. I know enough to be dangerous, but the beauty of what we do is I have a whole team of audio engineers that I lean on for that kind of thing. So can I put a microphone out in front of somebody and plug it in and make sure that there's a sound coming through? Yes, I can absolutely do that. And I can make it sound halfway decent. But this is where you have to look at the strengths of your organization and realize that, because one of the pitfalls I see is that organizations will say, well, we got this one guy and he's going to do it all. And we're going to buy him the best camera and buy him the best gear. And he's just going to solve all of our problems. And that's just not the case. I'm very good at making videos. I'm not the strongest audio person, so I rely on audio. And while I'm, caught up in the specifics of why this camera won't turn on or what's going on with why my batteries aren't charged or where's my tripod, I can turn over to Sergeant Daniels and say, hey, when we're done with this, where are we going next? Or can you go talk to that person across the street and make that dog stop barking? Or, when are we taking lunch? There's so many jobs or, aspects of a production that when you, like I said, when you rely on one person to do all of the work, you will have a very limited product. And then when you look inside your organization and say, well, gee, this person knows a lot about audio. Why don't I just let him handle that part of it? And then this person, I've seen them do some really great stuff on social media. Maybe they'll be our video person. And this other person is, boy, they're just really bubbly and chatty and everybody likes talking to them. And why don't they be our social media person, or they'll be our public affairs? And realize the strengths that you have. I mean, that's like what Sergeant Daniels said, that while I'm the sole, I started off as the sole trained video person in the unit, played French horn before I got here, but I'm only doing video now. Like, she was a flute player and is still a flute player, but has taken on a new role as a producer, and as many other people in the band have done. Sergeant Sacawa on saxophone, Sergeant Maytum on French horn, et cetera, et cetera. So like I said, just look inside your organization and see who you have available and who might be able to step up to the plate.
Great. I do have a question about the platform, YouTube. Maybe somebody can help answer this one. We have a member that was asking about YouTube versus Vimeo. Can anybody discuss what they know about Vimeo for us?
I can chime in on this.
Okay.
Vimeo, maybe Jared could speak about the two, it's just YouTube is what people use more. It's like a bigger search engine for people. Vimeo is not as well searched in the same way. Like if you go to Google, and you look for something, you're going to find something on YouTube. You're not going to find something on Vimeo necessarily. And that's because YouTube is part of Google and Vimeo is not. I think Sergeant Morgan might be able to speak to I think there are like certain quality type things that might be different. But
yeah,
I don't know.
Sure. I'll chime in real quick. I mean, yeah, Vimeo is very high quality audio and video, but I find it to be very niche, like for filmmakers specifically like to put up their short films up there. I know a lot of symphonies are using Vimeo for their pay platform, where you can have like a subscription based kind of thing where a subscriber pays X amount of dollars per month or yearly, and then they have access to videos, and it's kind of like an all-encompassing turnkey package. Although I do know that they are changing a lot of their rights issues, like with getting permissions, and publishers are not playing well with Vimeo. And so this kind of stuff is changing all the time. I think best bang for your buck in terms of reaching a large audience and also becoming like planting your flag and saying we perform this kind of music is most certainly YouTube, and then Facebook. Facebook is the personal connection that you meet with people. Those are the people that are going to be in your inner circle. If you're, say, we're in Maryland, and so we're the DC band, and that's what people know us. And of course, we reach people because we tour, but say if you're in Wisconsin or something, it's chances are that people in Wisconsin they're gonna find you on Facebook because they know you as the community band. But when you post something on YouTube, and this is really a specific reason why you don't want to put up a whole performance of something, because if I just put up a 45-minute performance of okay, here's you just call it like Masterworks 3 concert live April 4th. Well, that doesn't tell me anything. But if I see Pines of Rome, awesome trombones ending, check it out. Well, I might click on that because I like awesome trombone ending. And somebody might actually type in Pines of Rome, and so they're going to come up and they're going to, you're starting to be specific targeting about who you want to reach. And I know that's something Sergeant Sacawa spoke about. Like, don't try to just in closing, like, don't try to reach everybody. We have videos that have reached everybody, but it's almost by accident. We just put stuff out there and say, look, this is what we do, and this is this video. And sometimes they're flops and they just never go anywhere, or they sit on the shelf for a couple of years and then they go viral for no reason. We don't even know why.
Right.
I have two things I'd add to that. What Sergeant Morgan was saying about, YouTube has this great sense of community, and that is what's great about YouTube is people find their tribe on YouTube, and you can be someone who plays the spoons, and you could be the biggest thing on YouTube. But, I think a lot of times when people talk about YouTube versus Vimeo, it's really an issue of, oh, I can put up a higher quality product on Vimeo. But the truth is that most people, when they're streaming online or streaming any kind of content online, we could talk about, oh, there's 4K cameras and there's 6K and 8K or whatever. Like, most people are only streaming at 1080 or 720. That's the highest. So even if you film in 4K and that's a concern of yours, if you put that out there on YouTube, probably people are only seeing it in 1080p.
I'll add this real quick. Up until about November, all of our stuff was 720p. That's just what the cameras that we had at the time. Everything was ready to go. It looked great. We had no reason to change. At the time, we weren't encumbered. Oh, well, we're not streaming in 4K. We're not doing 1080. Like, what are we? No, we just did it. And eventually we upgraded the equipment as, time went on, but you certainly don't need that high quality kind of a camera or image to get this kind of a thing done.
Right. Hey, I'd like to bring back Colonel Keene. Can I bring you back, Jim?
Here I am.
Kind of help wrap this up here a little bit.
Sure.
All this information is just so fantastic, and we thank you guys for sharing it with us. I'd kind of like to know, and I'm sure our members would like to know, what, with all the stuff that you've learned over the year and a half, how are you going to incorporate all these lessons that you learned into the future, into maybe even your live performances? So maybe you can help sum up some of that for us.
It's interesting that us people have gone to schools to learn music. We gave up kind of the music industry to the amateurs. These are the folks who kind of just winged it, right? And they might sing out of tune. They might sort of not be where we'd hope that music should evolve to. But I'll tell you, when we work at, let's say we are working on a project with the Macy's 4th of July Independence fireworks show in New York City. They are accustomed to working like maybe with a rock band, right? Who will put the tracks down. Hey, we're going to have a big explosion at 2 minutes and 12 seconds. And can you put a big chord, like a big, big rock guitar sound, a big drum sound? That's kind of how they talk. They want, in other words, they're used to people being extraordinarily flexible and using using industry lingo. Like, hey, can you make this tune 5 minutes and 12 seconds? And we go, no, it's 7 minutes and 12 seconds. And then they go, okay, well, we'll find somebody else. And so I think the biggest thing that we learn is working and collaborating with industry. You really have to figure out who's your audience. How do you talk to them? How do you reach them? How do you keep them? Who are they? And give them something that is valuable. Like, we started and we didn't know how it was going to go. Right now we have, in a bad week, we have maybe 500,000 to 800,000 people that will tune into our programs on all of our platforms. We didn't think that would be true at the beginning of this. We were kind of worried if we would get 800 people showing up at some of these events. And we were struggling, and we continue to struggle. We, every time you move the bar up, you figure out, gosh, I wonder what we should do. Right now, the field band's typical audience member is not a person with a PhD in conducting. And so it's a person who's actually thumbing through their handheld device, and they could care less about any of it. The algorithms figure out that, hey, maybe let's check this out. Maybe this person will like this. 85% of our audience are people who are not our followers. They are not followers of classical music. They're not followers of band music. Therefore, that information that we've been talking about, look, make sure your stuff is engaging to just anybody. Make sure you have a story that's easy to hold on to. Make sure your music is engaging all the time. And that's something that we, I think, as an industry have to learn. We have to get better at that, because we have this expectation that, hey, you're going to be sitting there for a long time in this concert hall, and you're just going to have to bear with it. All the stuff we give you, you're just going to have to just deal with it. And I promise, by the end, you're going to be happy. And now you're dealing with an audience that's there for about 8 seconds. It's a real different environment.
Right. Jim.
Yeah.
Good to see you, man. Good to see you so much. Let me tell you, thank you. And thank you and your team for being with us today and sharing with us all these great tips and experiences that you've had this last year and a half. And I know the entire group here would like to give you a virtual round of applause. So thank you all so much.
We all live for applause.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And with that, we end with this session here. And I'd like to go ahead and hand it back over to our president, Susan Sands.
Thanks, Tom. And thank you, everyone, for joining us for today's very informative session of ACB Connects. On behalf of the Association of Concert Bands, I would like to offer our most sincere gratitude to Colonel Jim Keene and the specialists from the United States Army Field Band for sharing their time and expertise with us today. Also, a special thanks to our ACB moderator, Tom Rotondi, and to the entire ACB Connects production team. The next session of ACB Connects will be on Sunday, May 16th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. This session continues the virtual concert series with live concerts during COVID, thinking outside the stage. Join us as several ACB band conductors participate in an open discussion about what they've been doing with their bands and what they're planning. On Wednesday, May 26th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, join ACB Connects for a virtual orientation to the Performing Arts Reading Room at the Library of Congress. This will be an exciting and informative insider's tour of the beautiful music division within the Library of Congress. Our expert guides on this virtual tour will be Melissa Wertheimer, Music Reference Specialist, and Caitlin Miller, who has been a reference specialist in the music division of the Library of Congress since 2009. Please check the ACB website for more details as they become available and for the registration information on these and other upcoming ACB Connect sessions. Every year, ACB holds an informational meeting for the entire membership of the association. Usually this happens at the National Convention, but this year it will be a virtual event hosted by the ACB Connects production team on Sunday, April 25th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Every ACB member is encouraged to attend. This invitation also extends to everyone who belongs to an ACB member band. During this general membership meeting, there'll be time for greeting your friends from across the country and from around the world. There'll be a special presentation of the Showcase of Bands, which will feature more than 30 of our ACB member bands and includes an encore performance of the 2014 convention band. During the meeting segment, you'll hear from our current officers and board members, and you'll witness the new officers and new board members as they take their oaths of office. Then to complete the program, awards will be presented. We'll hear from the Santa Fe, New Mexico 2022 Convention Committee, and we'll welcome a special guest speaker from Ireland, Keith Kelly, one of the founding members of the Irish Symphonic Wind Orchestra and host of the Global Bandroom podcast. Registration information for this special event will be coming very soon. For the links mentioned today and to access all previously recorded sessions of ACB Connects, please visit our ACB website homepage at acbands.org. You'll also find information about becoming an ACB member, details on future sessions of ACB Connects, and a wealth of resources. We'd also love to have you connect with us on Facebook, where you'll see informative and timely posts. Thank you so much for being with us today for this special opportunity to form new connections. We'll look forward to seeing all our members in just 2 weeks at the general membership meeting on Sunday, April 25th, and then again for the next session of ACB Connects on Sunday, May 16th, as the virtual concert series continues. Until then, take care and be safe.